Cody Bellinger officially goes from the Chicago Cubs to the New York Yankees. The Cubs are chipping in $5 million along with that. And they're getting back AAA reliever Cody Poteet. Swingman, technically, he made a couple starts for the Yankees last season. But is this addition, adding Cody Bellinger, who they have said is going to play center field, combined with signing Max Fried and signing Devin Williams, it's a collective $45.4 million next year. Does this do enough to replace Juan Soto on the lineup where the Yankees can still make another World Series push in 2025?
I don't know if a World Series push is possible. It's some of the other teams in the American League also improving over how they performed in 2024. But I do think that those three players do come very close to replacing Juan Soto, and they're doing it at a $10 million cheaper price tag for three players combined as opposed to just the one player. But yeah, I still think it's going to be hard for the Yankees to make it back to the World Series. I think that they kind of coasted on a weak American League side of the bracket to the World Series, but we'll see what can happen in 2025.
Yeah, and I think the money thing is interesting. We heard a lot of conversation about there was an impasse here between the Cubs and the Yankees. We got some reporting from John Heyman after the deal was done. The Blue Jays were also interested in getting Bellinger, and that was one of those things that helped the Cubs keep their total financial contribution to just $5 million. It's $2.5 million for 25, and then another $2.5 million that will either help cover part of the buyout if he opts out, or help cover part of the 26 salary if he does not opt out, which it feels like Bellinger is probably not going to. And I think my question here is, why would the Blue Jays want Cody Bellinger? You have Dalton Varsho in center. You have Vlad Guerrero at first. I don't think any other contender had the same need for Cody Bellinger that the Yankees did. And so the Blue Jays are either saying after the fact, oh, we were interested just to try to placate their fans because they haven't done anything, or the goal was to try to drive the Yankees price up and like, okay, yeah, they took a little bit more salary on. They're the freaking Yankees. They don't care. So like, I don't want to talk too much about the Blue Jays in this, but like for the Yankees, this was the best possible outcome, was getting Bellinger without having to give up anything really of note other than money, right?
Right, absolutely. And as you said, they're the Yankees. The money doesn't matter to them. They can spend right along with the Mets and the Dodgers. And Cody Bellinger, we've talked about it. He fits their part perfectly with his batted ball profile. And he's a left-handed power hitter that pulls. And
he's a left, if it was a power hitter anymore, but I mean, he could hit 20 home runs. He did have like a surprisingly like below average pull rate last year. But like Juan Soto didn't have a great pull rate. He was more all fields before he went to New York, and they fixed that really quickly with the short porch. So I think they'll fix that. But what I think, not to speak for you, it sounds like you're trying to say like he could be successful in New York.
Right, absolutely. And yeah, I agree. He's not the power hitter that he once was 6-7 years ago, but where he had 18 home runs in 2024. I think that if he would have played all of his games in Yankee Stadium, he would have had 24 home runs in 2024. So an increase of 6 if he would have played all of his games. And adding, another 20 home runs to this lineup, that gives the team another guy that can hit 20 home runs. And, outside of Aaron Judge, who is going to hit 45 plus every year, Giancarlo Stanton is questionable on if he's even going to play enough to hit 20 home runs or more every year. Jazz Chisholm, maybe. It depends on how he's feeling when he wakes up in the morning. And then other than that, Volpe's not hitting 20. Let's see. Austin Wells probably isn't hitting 20. Dominguez, maybe, if they put him in the lineup. Oswaldo Cabrera ain't. And Ben Rice, maybe. But with Cody Bellinger in Yankee Stadium, he's another guy that as long as he stays healthy, you can mark down and pin 20 or more home runs from him.
Yeah, it feels like this is the best option they could have had because just how terrible the center field market is. They needed a lefty hitter who could be towards the top of the lineup. They needed a good defender, and they needed some power. And you get 2 out of the 3 with Cody Bellinger. Center field, this free agency is a wasteland. There's just nobody of note here. And I think there is a world where you see Bellinger at first base, but they're smart to come out and say he's going to play center so that they can try to get all of these first basemen who are still in the market, because there's actually decent first basemen, whether it's Alonso, whether it's Christian Walker, even a guy like Carlos Santana, who would be a good defensive first baseman. There's options out there. And what I like now is you have both Jazz Chisholm and Cody Bellinger who can play infield and outfield. Really, probably almost anywhere you put them for Jazz, at least. Cody's not playing short or anything, but they can play wherever you put them at their positions and at least be slightly above average, right? Like, I'm not worried. They threw Jazz at third, and Jazz was fine. He wasn't amazing, but he was fine. And so I feel like you have the ability. Jazz is at second. You can move Jazz to center if you need to. Cody can play first or center. Dominguez can play left or center. You've got Grisham on the right. Like, you have a lot of options here, and the defense should be much better than it was last year when you had Judge miscast in center field. He was one of the worst defensive center fielders in baseball. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't additive to center field, right? And it's much better all around. For the Cubs side of this, was this also the best possible outcome? Like, I've seen people say, "Oh, the Cubs got fleeced." It's like, no, they didn't. They shed the contract and probably the 26th liability for $5 million. They paid the buyout now instead of paying the buyout next offseason. And they got a potentially useful swingman in return.
Yeah, I agree. I think that getting rid of as much salary as possible was the biggest thing here for the Cubs. And I think I saw that they now have $90 million roughly available to still spend in free agency this offseason. And compared to where their payroll was last year,
they just have to do it.
Yeah, they have to do it. And they have made moves with trades, but they need to bring in somebody through free agency and spend some of that $90 million that they have available.
I feel like the needs of this team now is they could pencil Matt Shaw in at third. Pencil Matt Shaw in at third base. I do feel like maybe there's a trade there for a third baseman or a signing. I don't think they should sign a guy like Bregman. You and I both think Bregman's not going to be that great going forward. But this rotation, Shota Imanaga, Justin Steele. I like both of those guys. They both pitched right around a 3 ERA last year. I like the potential of Matthew Boyd. I've got workload questions about he threw 40 innings last year. But then like Jamison Taillon, 3.27 ERA, it felt a little fluky last year on that. Javier Assad, threw 147 innings. I think he's fine, but I don't think it would hurt to go get another stud for this rotation. And I think that's the big question people have. The bullpen as well. Your only lefties, I think Luke Little is really probably your only lefty, unless they just have a random guy up for long relief or something. It feels like a top line starter and or a prominent lefty for the bullpen. Tanner Scott maybe would be a great fit here for the Cubs. I think the big thing is here they can't be done. They can't just stand pat now and say, we got rid of Bellinger. We still have an extra outfielder because Seiya Suzuki is going to be our DH, but he can play the outfield if we need him to. I don't think they can be done. They've got to keep adding. One, from a payroll perspective, right? Like you said, they have $60 million, I think, before they get to last year's spending, which was $228. They're at $174 right now per Fangraphs. But then also they've got Shota Imanaga has a player option for 2026. I mean, he could very well walk if he doesn't think that the team's doing enough to stay competitive, right? And so this is definitely a situation where the Cubs can't be done because the National League feels like it, at least their path through the Central feels like it could be more open than it's been in a while with the Brewers continuing to subtract.
Right, and they've been linked to add another starter in Jesus Luzardo, but again, that's another trade. That's not getting somebody through free agency. And honestly, with how good their infield defense is, how great would Corbin Burns look in this rotation?
Oh my
Just
gosh.
in front of
And
that
to
infield.
stick it to the Brewers by taking their guy who they had to trade away because they knew they couldn't re-sign him, the Cubs go in after taking their manager and then take their former ace.
It's crazy. He's pretty heavily linked to the Giants and as well the Blue Jays. I know we're not really talking the Blue Jays much. My thing, I think I'm kind of with you. I think they're just kind of trying to drive the price up on all of these people that they're so-called in on, because they've also had the rumors surrounding trading Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. Why would those rumors be a thing if they're also in on all these big-time free agents and big-time names in the trade market? It's weird. That's another story for another episode. But yeah, I'm with you. I still think the Cubs need to do more. I do think that they have pretty much claimed the National League Central title for 2025, assuming this roster stays healthy. But as far as being a World Series contender, I think they need to do a little bit more to contend with the teams in the National League East and National League West.